Travelling on the Ghan from Darwin and passing through Katherine, we arrived at AliceSprings the following morning. Our stop here was to include visits to the Flying Doctor Base, the Reptile Centre and the Telegraph Station. Several coaches were waiting to take passengers to a variety of interesting sites in the area. After cautiously driving alongside of the train for a few moments, our coach pulled in at the Flying Doctor Base, and we were soon learning the facts about this organisation here in AliceSprings.
From Adelaide, South Australia, who in their centenary year of 1939 raised the funds as a tribute to the pioneering women of the outback. Today, the AliceSprings base itself covers an area of approximately 600 kilometre radius. From Alice, we do not fly to Great Britain. It's just superimposed to give people some idea of the vastness of the territory, okay? We also have a cattle station here in the Northern Territory, the same size as Florida, so people can get some idea from their home countries. And of course, Cloncurry and Mount Isa are in outback Queensland. This is where you'd find them today. They're about 30 kilometres apart. Our section today covers this part of Australia. Okay, it includes Adelaide, Port Augusta, Yulara and AliceSprings. We are called Central Operations. Now we are the top end here. They've always been covered by Government Aerial Medical Service at Ayers and all travellers. Whether you're Australian or international, once you leave AliceSprings, this is your telephone, diagnosis by telephone. And the doctor is the only person who can authorize. If you've travelled, you might have seen the same system in other countries. And of course, if you take your eyes up to the top, you'll find Darwin. Now, Darwin down to the silver marker is the same distance as what it is to Adelaide.
Displays in the museum highlighted much of the equipment and the variety of aircraft used over the many years of the operation of the RFDS since the Reverend John Flynn began his outback ministry in 1912.
Across the road we found the AliceSprings Reptile Centre, through which we had a guided tour by one of the staff. A considerable number of highly lit and well-presented displays behind glass cases captured our attention, and we were given an informative description of their contents. Interestingly, fish played a prominent part in some of these displays. On display are shark teeth and fossils of amphibians, frogs, reptiles, lizards and crocodiles, to name a few.
This little skull here is commented on, so sort of got a body. Look at some of the lions that used to roam around, that's the size of it yesterday. So folks, you're going to come down to this one. Used to be around to be compared today, and his skull would only really just sort of fit in that enclosure. Skulls up around 7 tonne. So absolutely. When you look at the crocs that
but it was the living creatures that attracted most attention.
This little guy here, we sort of touched on based on this fellow because they call him a king brown snake. In actual fact, and to a dark chocolate brown colour, and because they're quite sizable compared to the common brown snake or a true brown snake, this is where the name king brown comes into it. So we prefer to call them mulga snakes because of the fact they're not little brown snakes at all. Here in fact, it's just sort of hiding away, but there's in fact a true brown snake. So, out of all of our pythons in Australia, Gavin and Shani are one of the python there as well. These guys actually eat highly venomous snakes. Now, the beauty of that as well is those two animals are actually totally immune to snake venom. So normally like these pythons here, for instance, when they hunt food, they simply bite on, they have a lot of teeth in their mouth, so they basically coil around it and squeeze it tight. But these guys here, when they hunt, if my finger's a snake, if you coil around that, there's a chance it slips out the middle. So these guys are actually very lazy about it as well. They actually follow them along the ground, wait until they go down a hole, and they just lay in the length of that hole. Now of course this snake has to come back out, so he simply, when he comes out past his body, he simply squashes him against the wall of the hole. And because his scales are slightly different to this fellow, they're all actually slightly raised. It actually helps lock into the snake and hold the snake so he can't get away. So fairly.
Although not extremely large, the centre is well designed and the abundance of wildlife here is very well cared for.
So he loves drinking his water. These animals are really strange. When it comes to drinking water, quite often they won't actually drink straight out of a bowl. It's going to be bubbling around. How's that? So you're meant to pop up for me. We'll do it for you. No? You're used to me, aren't you? So as soon as he feels a bit threatened, that pops out, makes his head look 4 times the size it actually is.
Moving outside, we were taken to a large fenced pool to see the resident crocodile, which our guide disturbed for our convenience and, I think, the croc's annoyance. The best view of him was down below the water level, where we could get up close and watch him through a 4 centimetre thick glass panel.
Leaving the Reptile Centre, we reboarded the coach and headed for the old Telegraph Station. This repeater station was midway along the old telegraph line from Darwin to Adelaide. From the buggy shed and store on the left, our eyes passed to the battery room, then to the blacksmith shop behind the large barracks building, to the station master's kitchen and residence.
The station master was not only in charge of the largest station on the line, but also had to be an emergency doctor, a magistrate, and government official responsible for Central Australian Aborigines. Behind the barracks is the blacksmith shop and shoeing yard where the smithy was kept busy. About 60 horses were kept for transport on the station and for linesmen who maintained the line. The fire in the stone forge was quickly blown into life when needed by the leather-sided bellows connected at the rear.
The Post and Telegraph Office was the heartbeat and reason for the station. The purpose was to boost the Morse code signals on their way between Adelaide and Darwin so that they were carried at full strength along the line. The station in AliceSprings was opened in 1872 and was constantly manned to maintain contact through Darwin to the rest of the world by Morse code. The curved boxes on the operator's desk amplified the sound of an incoming message in case the night shift operator was relaxing on the cowhide bunk, which in summer was on the veranda.
Built in the 1870s, this building was used to house the stores and buggies.
So Rick, how long do you want us to carry on with this sort of stuff for?
The shed also housed the year's supply of flour, tea, sugar, and the spare harnesses and gear essential to the running of the station. Doris Bradshaw, who lived at the Telegraph Station from 1899 to 1908, says in her book Alice on the Line, flour, tea, sugar, tinned goods, medical supplies, blankets and clothing. Everything needed for the maintenance of the station came on camels only once a year. Mother and father spent days preparing our order, many months before they could hope to receive it. In 1866, Thomas Elder imported 120 camels to South Australia, and eventually these animals became the forerunner of the Afghan camel trains. Camel saddles and billy cans highlight the use of these amazing creatures. A school group in costume were given instruction in collecting the local weather information, which was collected every 4 hours and quickly sent to Adelaide.
Our time of observation, we're going to pretend it's 12 o'clock. Okay.
The rate of evaporation was measured using these evaporation tanks. The remains of the old stockyards are reminders of the need for stock to keep the station running. Bullocks and sheep were kept for meat, and the remains of the old gallows are a reminder that meat was killed and prepared on site.
Finally, we were driven back to the Ghan to reboard our designated coach. Soon we were on our way again, and as the Ghan slowly pulled away, the call came for lunch, and it was our turn to visit the dining car.
You'll be eating with Gary in the middle dining car, and for our other half of H, G, F, C, D and E, you'll be eating with Steve in the very rear dining car.
Then came the time to study the menu for the day's lunch. It wasn't long before our kangaroo manager Steve welcomed us back on board and introduced the crew for the next stage of the journey.
I'd just like to welcome you all to the Blacksford restaurant. My name is Steve Jarrett, I'm your Gold Kangaroo Manager on this journey through to Port Augusta and Adelaide. I'd like to introduce our fantastic restaurant staff to you. Standing on my left hand side here we have Christy and Sharman, and we have the other Ghan on the right hand side.
There you go.
We have Crystal and Simone. Now they'll come around and take orders for drinks that you would like from the bar. Sean will come around about dessert time today, and she will be relieving you of funds for those drinks that you have purchased throughout your meals. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great time with us in the restaurant and enjoy your meals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then they drove us down around the Great Lake. The meals on the train were excellent, and we were very well looked after by the staff. We slowed down as we crossed the Fink riverbed, one of the largest rivers in Central Australia. Usually the river is a string of waterholes, but it can become a raging torrent during rare floods. It was named by John McDowell Stewart in 1860 after William Fink, who was one of the promoters of his expedition. There was plenty of time now to relax in the lounge and bar as we headed south en route for Adelaide.